are live. Welcome back to the On3 podcast, everyone. I got, again, myself, Salvi, my co-host, Naveed, and today we got a very special guest. Naveed, who do we have?
I mean, without a further ado, he's a real estate agent at RE/MAX. He's a managing editor and founder of Bay Street Blog, which I read, by the way, way before anyone for watching this podcast. Go check it out. It's a great millennial finance hub for someone that just wants to learn more about personal finances. And then you got your own venture going on with Vertex Real Estate, which is advertised as a one-stop shop for all your Toronto State real needs. Welcome to the pod, Jelani Smith. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on this podcast. I'm looking forward to it. So
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for coming down.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm just gonna get straight into it, man. Your resume is impressive in the whole real estate and personal finance game, and you know, looking at everything, doing a bit of deeper dive into you. Main thing we wanted to get across and start off with is how does a 28-year-old buy 7 rental properties in the GTA?
I started my journey pretty much when I was 21, so my third year of university. I pretty much purchased a pre-construction in Toronto at the price of $526,000. Because it's going to be finished, like it's pre-construction, so it's going to be completed by the time I graduate working full-time. So I planned it perfectly in that sense, trying to take advantage of timing in the market as opposed to trying to time the market, right? I'm a huge believer in that. So I purchased that for $526,000.
Wow.
By the time it closed on a year and a half later, it was appraised at $680,000 by the bank. And now fast forward to today, 7 years later, it was appraised for $1,045,000. So what I did was I took the equity from that home, refinanced it, leveraged it, and used that to buy the second, third, and fourth, and so on properties. So for the next properties, what I did is I focus on like bungalows, with like dual rental income potential. Purchased a bungalow, I had a basement apartment, so that way I could rent out the main floor and basement separately, have that positive cash flow, and refinance that money and take the equity out and do the same project again. So that's also known as the BRRRR method. When you buy a property that's pretty much under market value or that has room for forced appreciation, renovate it, rent it out, refinance, take the equity out, and repeat. So that's the main strategy I've been doing for the past almost a decade, essentially.
So you would say that's your hacking strategy that you've applied?
That's correct.
So how old were you when you bought your first property again?
I was 21.
21. That is impressive.
Yeah.
So did you have like money saved up?
I did. So
before?
I did. So during university, I worked 3 jobs.
Yeah.
So I was a research analyst for economics professor. I worked in the finance lab as a finance lab assistant, and I worked at BMO as a teller. So I was doing 3 jobs during university. I saved at least 50% of my income.
Oh, wow.
And invested that into options trading.
Wow.
So thankfully, the options trading, it made me enough money to have a down payment on my first property, and it's ever since.
I'm almost inclined to say right now, I was like, can we get a reference check on this guy? Because 3 part-time jobs in uni, saving up for a house? Who are you, Jelani Smith? Come on.
You can start my LinkedIn profile. It's all there.
But that is crazy. So is it like, did you always have kind of in your mind that you wanted to own properties, go into real estate in that way?
So also, my mom always inspired me to kind of look into real estate investing. So like during high school, or even starting elementary school, actually, we was going for like open houses, talk about like real estate investing. I've witnessed my parents purchase pre-construction homes for themselves, and even buy like investment property in Scarborough. So pretty much when I turned 19, like just out of high school, that's when my mom told me I should start looking into investing into properties, kind of start saving up for that. My first purchase before the townhome was actually a 1-bedroom plus den condo in Toronto. I was in like Scarborough, Canadian 401 for the purchase price of $230,000.
Oh my God.
I want you to repeat that number just one more time for me.
So $230,000 in 2013. God. I purchased a condo for $230,000, 1-bedroom plus den.
You were a genius.
but unfortunately, I backed out. Because a lot of people are saying I'm overpaying for the house. Like $230,000 for a condo doesn't make sense. So I mean, I was 19. You make stupid mistakes then, right?
Yeah.
But thankfully, I took that money, saved it, and got a freehold townhome. So it worked out. But still, if I still kept on to that property, it's more than double than what it's worth then, essentially.
No, that makes sense. That's very that's very inspirational. And I think it's a good thing for a lot of people, especially the new Gen Zs coming up.
100%.
To kind of keep in mind that you can still do that. Because when we were coming up, when we were 19, 20, 21, we're like, oh, well, houses, whatever. We can worry about that later.
Yeah.
And now we're looking at the market. We're like, oh my God.
Yeah, and it's that same thing, whether it's real estate or trading in the finance market. You're like, oh man, I should have done it earlier. Oh my God, Netflix was trading at this and now it's trading at this.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, I mean,
Bitcoin even.
yeah, Bitcoin, all of this stuff. But, you know, shout out to your mother because she pushed you to,
Pretty much.
make that position within the real estate market.
So let's backtrack a little bit.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about your journey into kind of. I know you said like we started off kind of it started investing in undergrad, but take us a little bit back from there. How your journey into how you got to kind of studying in. You went to UTSC, I believe.
That's correct.
And then from there, how you went full time into real estate. Because I know I guess you were more in finance in the beginning.
That's correct. That's correct. So, so going back to high school, I was in the IB program, the International Baccalaureate program.
Oh, so you're smart. You're definitely smart.
Established.
Yeah. So, pretty much. I mean, like I took the generic courses essentially, but I decided to go to UTSC for the management courses. I did look at going abroad, like Wilfrid Laurier University or going to Ottawa, but I decided to stay home because UTSC is like super close to my parents' house. So I save on like the food, the living accommodations, and etc.
You're already ahead of the curve. And by the way, that was a great program. The co-op management, great program.
Yeah, it was. Actually, I wasn't in co-op, but I found the internships, like doing networking. So I found the internship for myself.
Even better.
Essentially. So I went, during UTSC, so I did 3 jobs during the school year. And during the summer, I did like internships at BMO. So commercial banking, personal banking, business intelligence, business analyst, so various different roles. Once I graduated, I got a full-time job at BMO. At that time, this was back in 2017. It's paying $50K a year, 9 to 5. But it just wasn't for me. Like just waking up 6 a.m. every day, getting ready, running to catch a GO train, getting into the office at 9 a.m. and coming back home at 5 a.m. Like every day was the exact same. Yeah. It came to a point where it just wasn't for me. It's just becoming a bit depressing because not depressing the battery. It's just not for me essentially. Yeah. Because I every day, what I like about my current roles, every day is different essentially. Right. I love talking to people, doing sales and etc. So back in 2021, I decided to quit BMO. I actually did car sales for a year. I was selling Hondas while getting my real estate license. And so I did, when I got my real estate license, I did both jobs simultaneously. I was selling houses and cars. It was literally 13-hour work days. Right?
Tell me how this man is so ahead of the curve. He identified the 2 biggest purchases of a general human's lifespan, cars and houses. I'm going to go there.
And to be honest, personally, I love Honda, so it was a lot of fun to sell.
I see where that Acura love comes from.
Yeah, exactly. Right? So that's pretty much, I mean, I've always been like I've always enjoyed sales-driven roles, even like when I was working at the bank. I was a teller, just kind of talking to people, listening to them, understanding the needs, and kind of suggesting that product to them. And it's even better if I'm passionate about the product I'm selling, so whether it's Hondas or real estate. So I think I learned a lot of the sales techniques from selling Hondas because sales is a very transferable skill, whether it's like you're selling cars or houses. So I think that really helped me kind of put my real estate career to the next level. Yeah. With all the techniques I've learned. And now fast forward to today, the top 1% realtor in the GTA. So
that's awesome.
I bet that's vetted, by the way. Yeah. Oh man, but you know, you were speaking about your roles back in the corporate world. Was there anything that you took away that transitioned you into your self-employed career thus far?
To be honest, like in the corporate, like when I was working at the head office, I would say no, not really. To be honest, I was in like an undergrad development program, so it was like an operation analyst role. Yeah, every day was like the exact same type of stuff. I'm pretty sure you guys have had those repetitive jobs where you're not learning anything.
Yeah, trust me. Right. Yeah.
Right. So you understand the struggle that I was doing.
I'm not gonna say it right now, but could be the current job. We'll never know.
Let's hope your boss is not watching.
Yeah.
Right. But I'll say from the sales aspect of BMO, like when I was in the customer-facing roles, that those are definitely transferable skills that I did use, but not from like the corporate office essentially.
No, that's amazing. So now we're at the point where you have transitioned from your corporate 9 to 5 into the self-employed venture of sales with cars and also houses.
Yeah.
So in relation to real estate, when you first got into it, were there any misconceptions that you had that were right off the bat just vetted?
Like misconceptions about like
The real estate market and or as an agent as well, agent, broker, realtor.
to be honest, like when I got the reason why I decided to get my real estate license, I didn't have the greatest experience at the agent that helped me purchase my first home. So I decided to just get my real estate license to help myself this buy, sell, transact on homes.
Yeah.
But this ended up becoming a career. I did get my license just for the sole purpose of like making X amount of dollars per year. I think that's a mistake a lot of new agents make. They get the license, expected to make $500,000 in the first year without putting in the work. Actually, my first year, I just focused on leases only, just kind of building that database.
Right.
So if you have clients that are leasing, in a couple of years, they're going to buy or sell homes. So I kind of built my database very organically. I wouldn't say there's any misconceptions because I did speak with a lot of realtors before getting into the field, so kind of knew what to expect, essentially.
Oh, okay. You touched on that point. You know, a lot of people get into that real estate market hoping of, you know, achieving some monetary goal.
Exactly.
How saturated has this market become to the point where you not only have to be at that top 1%, but bring something different to the table?
I would say over the past couple of years, definitely gone very saturated. Right now, we're almost 18,000 realtors in the GTA.
Wow, I'm pretty sure, 13,000.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like so many of our, so many people we know are like starting up real estate businesses, and I'm like, well, good for you, man. Hope it works out, but
definitely,
definitely competition.
Definitely, right. It's, like, if you look at the stats, like almost half of them did 0 deals last year in 2023, right? And only, I think it was something like less than 10% of them, actually it's less than 5% of the realtors did more than 2 deals each month last year. So that tells you a lot about the numbers. Like there's a lot of realtors out there.
Right.
It's a very saturated market, but only those ones who are very like experienced or very well known are pretty much taking most of the business, which is expected, right? Because there's a lot of realtors out there that are not. I find there's a lot of new realtors out there that don't have as much experience, essentially, right? So that's what I'm noticing.
So let me ask this: with how saturated the realtor market is, when, let's say, as a buyer, when you're choosing a realtor, what are, I guess, the most important factors that we should look at for to get like a good realtor on our side?
Definitely, I think there's quite a few important factors. I think communication is definitely one of the most important ones, especially if you're actively looking to buy a home, if you're submitting offers, and the communication is very important. Or if you're selling a property, say if you get an offer, sometimes it can expire in 2 or 3 hours, so you have to make sure you're on the ball. And also, another important factor is have they purchased a property themselves, have they sold a property themselves?
Right.
Because you'd be shocked to know that there's actually a lot of people in the field that have never been through the process themselves, right? If I was a buyer, I would rather purchase from someone who's been through it themselves because they kind of understand what it's like from the buyer's point of view, essentially, right? So
That's a great point. And I think one of the things I've noticed is a lot of times people are going to be like, okay, let's do a private sale because then we don't have to pay realtor fees and stuff like that. But I've also heard the argument on the other side, no, you should get a realtor because you don't know what value you could get.
for sure.
How accurate is that?
I would say that's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Because I've actually seen some cases where some people do a private sale to cut out the realtor fees. Let's say I'm just going to use a fixed number just to make it easier. So let's say if the house is worth $900,000, but the seller gets a private sale with no realtor commission for $700,000, or if they put on the market, pay the realtor, let's say $50,000 commission, for example, and they sold for $900,000, they'll still get $150,000 more in their pocket. So it's all about looking at the big picture. Sure, you could pay a realtor, put on the market, but you'd be getting way more than that 5% that they're charging you, right? So I think that's like a huge misconception. Like private sales, that's the best deal, right? But the seller could be losing out on, in many cases, $100,000 or so, right? And I've seen that happen quite a few times.
So when it comes to misconceptions about investing in real estate, as a buyer or as a consumer, do you think particularly amongst millennials and Gen Zs, there's certain common misperceptions? And how do you go about addressing them?
Definitely. I would say the common misconception is you can't. Like say if you look at like investment property, a lot of people think you can't cash flow positive in the GTA. It's doable if you find something that you can convert to like a dual rental income, where there's like a semi-detached home in the Durham region or even a detached bungalow in Toronto. If there's dual rental income, I'll say 9 out of 10 times you'll be positive cash flow or at least break even. I think that's really the trick to kind of succeeding in today's real estate environment, especially with the interest rates being the way they are right now. Right?
Yeah. So I guess, yeah, we're talking about the interest rates right now. Let's say if you were in my shoe, technically, which is like no properties yet.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at, sorry?
As in not yet.
Not yet, exactly. And I'm looking at the interest rates. I'm looking at the current housing market prices. And I'm just like, okay, does it make sense for me to buy? If you were in my shoes, how would you approach something like the current market?
Definitely. And I always tell my buyer clients, just do it when the time is right for you. Right? Don't try to rush in. Don't try to like kind of force yourself into the market. If that makes sense. Just do it when the time is right. Given the interest rates, what a lot of people are doing is because of the stress test. Like right now, the prime is like around 7%.
Yeah.
Let's say you have the stress test an additional 2%. Like I've had clients who make $100K a year. They unfortunately don't get approved for that much mortgage amount. You just have to do the stress test, even though they make good income, right? So one way to mitigate around that would be what some people have done is pre-construction. But you have to be very careful with pre-construction purchases because obviously the cost of inflation has gone up, the cost of building, materials, labors. That's why we see a lot of pre-construction projects being priced way above the current market value. So pre-construction can make sense for those kind of stuck in that boat. But you just have to make sure the numbers make sense. Usually, I tell my clients to get pre-construction if it's at or around the current market value. That's when you get the strongest return on investment. Just in my opinion, if you're paying way above the current market value for a pre-construction home, I just don't think it makes sense. You might as well just wait a couple of years and get that in the future, essentially, or just kind of keep saving up until you could get a home in the resale market, essentially. And that's why we're seeing a lot of assignment sales purchase way above the current market value. And now
weren't you in that boat?
Yeah, I was. A little bit context. Long story short, bought a pre-con condo in Waterloo as part of one of those towers right beside Waterloo University.
Yep.
Long story short, a year and a half, 2 years later, just did an assignment sale because I was like, things were looking a bit iffy with the interest rates, just backed out.
Yeah.
And
so you did it before this whole assignment sale.
Exactly, yeah.
So
they actually introduced the new sales tax in relation to it, right? Because of the amount of flips that were occurring.
Exactly, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did my first home was a pre-construction. Like when it comes to pre-construction, you really have to do your due diligence, get in the right location and etc. Right? So
yeah, it's such a crazy trade-off though when you think about it. Pre-cons versus resale is like pre-cons. They give you the element of time and taking your time with the deposit, the down payment, which is most of the time the biggest stress factor for individuals in the GTA. Yeah. But then when it comes to resale, they are priced relatively lower. Yeah. But hey, we need your payment right now.
Exactly right. So. Or what I've seen some people do is look at, probably get like a co-signer just to get approved for the mortgage, and like a year or two just take that co-signer off. That's like another strategy I've seen some buyers do as well. Right?
Yeah, that's I think the real estate market has been such a hot topic. I think as soon as, especially for us millennials, as soon as we were of age and had some income, we're like, okay, we got to get into the real estate market as soon as possible.
Definitely. Our parents are fortunate enough to get double car garage detached homes. Back in the early 2000s, 1990s, right? But it is what it is.
Yeah, I'm like, if people were lucky enough to have the foresight to buy properties in like 2013, 14, 15 even. Yeah. Like at that point, if you had bought a property at that time, like right now it'd be valued so much higher. Like,
for sure.
Because I think it just started going up and up and up throughout the last decade, pretty much. I want to ask you as like a investment, because I know you've also kind of played around the stock market. You invested in the stock market yourself before getting into real estate, and I'm assuming you still are invested. You still are in the stock market.
So when I purchased my first home, when I purchased my first home, because I was so busy working at the bank, doing like the multiple jobs, so I kind of stopped doing options trading there.
Okay.
And so I can put everything in mutual funds.
Yeah.
But I'm starting to get back into it actually.
Get back.
Right.
So I guess then you'd be a good person to ask this, because a lot of times, like when I'm thinking about it, or even like people around me, they're like, okay, like should I invest in real estate or should I take that money and invest it into the stock market? Because people are looking at like historical S&P 500 returns versus real estate returns, and they're like, okay, the rate of returns in S&P 500 kind of mirrors that of real estate, but it doesn't have all the headaches that are attached to it. What do you have to say about that?
Definitely, I think like that's a very good point. Like the real estate returns in S&P 500 from like the long-term perspective, they're pretty comparable. But we have to also factor is like the real estate returns is based on the asset value. So like let's say if you're getting a $70,000 home, you put down 10% down, which is $70K down. You're not getting return on that $70K down. You're getting return of a $70,000 asset.
That's true.
So you're kind of leveraging on it essentially, right? So it's kind of like leveraging on stocks.
Yeah.
You borrow money, you invest it. Even though you put down $0 of your own money, but you borrowed it, you're getting 10% of that funds that were borrowed. Right. So that's one thing. That's one perspective to look at it from, and that's kind of where real estate is. That's why real estate is one of the biggest wealth builder, because they're kind of leveraging on that asset.
Right.
That's much larger than their down payment.
That's a great point. I didn't actually think about that, because you're essentially using debt to make more money.
Exactly.
And then hopefully, I mean, in low interest rate environments, it's easier to pay that off.
For sure. Right. Yeah, from a long-term perspective, like when interest rates are around 3 or 4, it's definitely beneficial. But obviously, right now it's like 7%, so it's been a little bit stagnant from that perspective. But long-term wise, you're kind of winning essentially.
Yeah. So have you? I'm speaking of, I guess, the current interest rates. Has it slowed down the kind of your business in terms of like finding clients as a realtor?
I would say it's been steady. Like we've actually had quite a few seller clients in the past couple of months, but we kind of told them to wait off until they cut the interest rates, because then we're going to start to see more buyers return to the market. So I'll say we've been a little bit more busier from the buyer's side, because there's so many good deals on the market, right? Right. Like I've had a client who got a condo in downtown Toronto for like $540, right?
Over in downtown?
Yeah. Right?
Oh, wow.
Right. So
that's an amazing deal.
Yeah, there's so many good deals out there, right? Especially for condos in the downtown core, finding the price difference not that significant compared to like Pickering or Mississauga is paid a little bit of a premium, but you're in the downtown core, right? And you can't beat that, especially if you're looking to rent out down the road, right?
For sure.
Oh, I'll get into it. I'm just astonished that the 3 part-time jobs, the sometimes trading in the financial markets, right? You know, the word hustle culture is quite closely associated with investing in real estate, or at least wanting to get in real estate. Do you think the hustle culture does more harm than good when it comes to real estate?
That's a good question. I'll say when it comes to social media, yes, because I feel this.
Good answer.
Right. I don't think this just applies to real estate. I think a lot of, let's just like if you look at real estate from, like people try to portray a certain image, like okay, like X amount of properties, etc. Right, but if you really look behind the scenes, a couple of tenants might not be paying a big, extremely negative cash flow, right? They're afraid to admit the failures, right? Like, because there's always going to be failures, bumpy roads along the whole process, essentially. So I think it's the hustle culture. I think it's really skewed that perception that everything's going to be perfect in real estate investing. When realistically speaking, most transactions are not going to be smooth as butter. There's always going to be some sort of hiccups along the way, right? So
are we on the same page that social media may be overly optimistic when it comes to investing in real estate?
I would say so. Depending, like, I'm sure you've seen some videos out there that you're like, what is this? Right?
Yeah.
Right.
And then I see yours. I'm like, okay, I'm trying to see where the reality lies, right?
Exactly, right. So, because like, I've fortunately seen some agents openly advertise projects where it's almost like at least $100,000, $200,000 above the current resale values in that area, right? So that's kind of where it's kind of even that perception, essentially, because a lot of buyers will just look at that video, play, oh, this seems like a good deal, like they're hyping this project up, right? But if you have to really look deep into the numbers, right? So I think it's kind of blindsides a lot of buyers for sure, I would say.
I think I liked what you said in the beginning, which is like buy it when it's the right time for you.
Exactly.
And I think that's the part I feel like a lot of people forget, especially I would say in our age group, which is like you're seeing your friends buy a property, you're seeing your mom's telling you why haven't you bought a property yet, you see your whatever you see on social media that people are buying houses, this, that. And people are like, oh shit, I'm falling behind in my life. I need to get a house. And I think that's the biggest mistake we do, which is like not doing it when it's the right time for us. Because next thing you know, we're like highly leveraged and in debt without an ability to pay off the debt. And now all we're paying is interest. We're not even paying off our principal or saving any amount in the mortgage. So it's very important to, I guess, as what you said, buy it when it's the right time for you.
Exactly, right.
Yeah.
I would say, I think this applies to a lot of aspects of life. Don't compare yourself with, to other people. Yeah. Right. Because I think once people get into that trap, that's kind of when you start doubting yourself and kind of making the wrong decisions, essentially. Yeah. So I think buying at the right time makes the most sense. Whether it's in your 30s or your 20s, there's no time. There's no time that's the wrong time or the right time, essentially. Right?
I kid you not. I tried to apply that same theory in Monopoly every time. I am not kidding.
Monopoly's different. If you have the opportunity to buy a property, buy it right away.
Buy it right away.
Monopoly's different.
Especially the cheap ones, because those are underrated.
Yeah, exactly.
You think the more expensive properties are the blue ones are the good ones? No, you gotta get the cheap ones first.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're telling me I could go somewhere in the Etobicoke area?
Etobicoke?
No, he's just alluding to the fact, sometimes the underrated properties are the best ones.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Wait, is Etobicoke underrated?
Let's ask the expert here.
I'll say Scarborough's more underrated, to be honest.
Scarborough's underrated?
Yeah, very. Don't you think Scarborough's underrated?
I think it's super underrated. Yeah. I'm in shock because I agree with you.
Yeah, okay.
So actually, speaking of that, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, speaking of that, we actually had a segment that we wanted to do with you, where we want to ask you if these cities are overrated or underrated.
Okay,
for real estate investment. Or I guess real estate investment, right?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Say your first city. I guess Scarborough. We started off with Scarborough.
Super underrated.
Yeah.
Right. Should I elaborate or just say underrated?
Oh, go.
You can elaborate. Yeah.
Okay. Do your thing. Anything.
I mean, you don't have to elaborate, but if you have something you want to really say.
I see. No, it's just super underrated. Yeah. Like a lot of people don't realize that Scarborough's extremely close to downtown. Like 25. Like from my place in Scarborough to downtown, a lot of times it takes me half an hour or 35 minutes in the middle of the day. Right.
Yeah.
Right. And with that, obviously benefits the rental rates. And the prices are relatively cheaper compared to other pockets of Toronto.
I definitely think there's a misconceived notion of like the extreme crime rate or safety implication in Scarborough. There is like it's a bit more. It's more amplified than it actually is. You know. Yeah. And I'm not.
Why is Scarborough known as the hood?
Why is Scarborough known as the hood, Jelani?
I think honestly,
it ain't. I mean, certain pockets are maybe.
No, I mean in the 1990s, there's some about it, but that's like 30 years ago, right? So,
yeah, exactly.
It's actually when I visit the West End and some people from Scarborough, sometimes they're like, "Oh shit, you're from Scarborough?" Actually, I'm like from the hood, right? I've never seen any violence in my life. My house never broken into or anything like that. Right?
Yeah, there you go. Malvern's actually nice now, if you know.
Yeah. Scarborough is huge too. Like you go all the way up to Morningside and Morningside and Shepherd is still considered Scarborough. I think, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
and then you come down to like DVP and
exactly.
All right, next one.
Yeah.
The big daddy of all places.
I think I know it.
Brampton. That facial expression says it all. You don't have to say nothing else.
Hey, whether you get flamed or not on online social media, it's okay. Just go ahead.
I would say Brampton's a good.
You're blushing at this point.
Okay, he lives in Brampton. You can say it.
Yeah, no.
And honestly, I'll say Brampton has, in my honest opinion, I feel like I used to work in Brampton actually when I was selling Hondas. I feel like in the past couple of years, Brampton lost its charm.
It's not the flower city anymore, is it?
It's just from that perspective, essentially. Right?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's take a switch of turns. What about Oakville?
Oakville's really beautiful. It's a really beautiful city.
I agree.
I would say it's definitely pricey, right? But in my opinion, I would choose Scarborough Plus over Oakville, but that's my opinion.
Yeah. But okay, so Oakville is exactly where it needs to be. It's not overrated. It's not underrated. It's exactly where it needs to be.
Yeah, I don't think it's overrated. I think it's a beautiful city. Yeah.
Okay.
If you had to go a bit outside the GTA, what about Hamilton?
H-Town.
I think like when you say Hamilton, people don't know what to expect. I wouldn't say, I would say it's exactly what it is.
Okay.
Right, yeah.
I mean, Hamilton also has like like on top of the mountain.
Yeah.
Go closer
See,
to downtown.
Hamilton's interesting. Like there's some
Yeah.
really nice pockets, but there's some grimy pockets, right?
Yeah.
So I think it evens out. So I'll just say it's pretty much equal.
Yeah, makes sense.
Right.
And then on the other side, you have Oshawa.
Oshawa. So it depends which pocket of Oshawa, right?
I'm not talking about South of 401.
I would say Oshawa is. I would say because it's part of Durham, I would say it's underrated. I find the whole Durham region to be underrated. To be honest, it's just as close to Toronto, but the prices are much cheaper compared to the West.
Do you think it's still gonna go places?
Oshawa?
Yeah. Durham as a whole.
Oh, 100%, 100%. Because they have the Lakeshore goal line. That's the best goal line in the GTA, in my opinion. The
Yeah.
train service every 30 minutes to and from downtown, next to the 401. And it's a lot more peaceful, in my opinion, compared to the West. It's
Yeah.
much less
Yeah.
traffic, right?
Yeah, because I know you always get hit with that Kennedy 401 traffic, but after that, it's pretty good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
exactly.
Whereas your West End coming down to the East End, you're just
Oh, the Niagara traffic is like ridiculous.
Yeah.
What's traffic?
Niagara.
Oh.
Because all the people going, especially in the summer, all the
Oh.
folks going towards Niagara
Yeah.
block out basically the 403 QEW.
Yeah.
So if you live in Hamilton or anywhere on this side,
Yeah.
way too much traffic.
And it's going to be hectic next Monday because of the solar.
Oh yeah, the solar eclipse.
Yes,
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
right. So,
You got any plans for that?
yeah, we're actually going to go. But I'm going to leave at 11. So I'm not going to go to Niagara Falls. We're going to
Yeah.
go to Dundas Peak.
Oh,
Ooh.
So
make sure you get there night before.
It is going to be that packed?
It's 100% going to be that pack.
Sure.
I'll give you another spot though,
Okay.
down in Hamilton.
Okay. That one.
Yeah,
That's
let's finish this on a strong note.
Awesome.
Instead of us pitching you what's overrated, underrated, how about you tell us what's underrated in today's market?
Give us like I guess the top 3 places
Yeah.
that for you are underrated right now. That would be a good investment if people are looking to buy.
I would say the 3 areas would be downtown Toronto. You can get a condo for under 600K. Or I've seen 1 bedroom plus 10 condos with parking, sell for around 650, 670. Right? So that's super underrated. Scarborough, of course. We know
Yeah.
why. And Durham. I'd say those are the 3 underrated pockets.
Okay, awesome. So as of April 2024, the 3 areas, according to Jelani, downtown, Scarborough,
Yeah.
and what was the third one? Durham.
Durham region.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
This is not a paid sponsorship. You go to him if you have your real estate needs right there. Speaking of which, man, this is really cool. You started Bay Street blog back in the day.
Yeah.
I'm forgetting his name, but there was another guy on it. He was from Mac. I knew of him as well. That was kind of on maybe that committee that was at least promoting it. But talk a bit about Bay Street blog and what it is and the personal finances side of things now.
Yeah, so when I started, so actually this always goes back to high school. I've always been saving money. I wouldn't say a penny pinch. I'm just good with my money essentially, right? Just kind of be frugal. Also, that's a better term. But I still spend money. Like
I think you're a brown parent's dream child.
I actually get that a lot.
I'm not surprised.
Or sometimes my brown friends, their parents play a white, like, look what Jelani's doing. Or be like Jelani Beta.
Oh, Jelani Beta, yes.
Yeah, so people always ask me for personal finance advice, like, yo, like, what stock should I buy? How they're open for TFSA, stuff like that. So that's why I found the Bay Street blog at university. Just to kind of answer those general questions. These we graduated high school back in 2013. At that time, there's no personal finance
Right,
courses.
no curriculum.
Now there's that curriculum, right?
Yeah.
So there was that missing gap between millennials and personal finance. So that's why I found the Bay Street blog at that time. Just kind of teach people about financial literacy, what is options trading, what is stock investing, or if you don't know jack shit about stocks, you could just buy ETFs, buy mutual funds. You could keep it super simple, essentially. Right?
How did you learn about it? Was it through school, or did you self teach yourself about like kind of options trading and things like that?
Also, it's a combination. I actually read a few books,
Okay.
like Ramit Sethi or David Chilton. I think that's his name. I forgot.
Okay.
I read a few personal finance books. I took a couple of finance courses at UFT as well. So
Yeah.
I kind of learned through that too, self-taught. And I personally like to learn through experience. So I kind of lost some money in the beginning, but I made it at the end.
What's like one of the biggest bets you made that worked out in the options market?
I would say, so like to get the down payment for my first home, I did mostly options in kind of like a mix of like stable stocks, so like cash cows, like banks, apples, the Apple stock, and also did some tech stocks. Like at that time, Shopify and PayPal.
At that time, Shopify.
Yeah, like options and PayPal. PayPal was doing good at the time. Now, like it's a little bit of a different story, right? So that's I focus on like medium to large cap stocks. I at the beginning I did invest $600 into a penny stock. I think it was $600, but I lost all my money, right?
Okay.
So I learned from that point, just invest into companies that have proven themselves. Look at their financial reports, and they have like decent earnings growth and etc. That's the safest way to do it. But
Yeah, you mentioned your experience in the financial markets, and I think investing in blue chip stocks. I think that's a great way to start off, just because one, not only do you get to learn, but there's that risk mitigation aspect of minimizing your losses. But you mentioned back to Bay Street Blog, identifying that need for millennials and even to some extent Gen Zs, identifying that gap and then providing them, with a platform for financial literacy. What do you think is one of the primary differences between that of the millennials and then the prior generation, let's say our parents, when it comes to financial literacy?
what's the main difference?
One of the primary main differences, in your opinion?
I'll say, like from millennials and our parents' generation, I'll say discipline with money.
Yeah.
Again, I think I kind of blame social media for this. I find a lot of millennials, they want the satisfaction now as opposed to grinding it out and then having the rewards of the benefits later on, or just kind of like spending too much money on traveling without kind of having any savings in their bank account, right? So I think small things like that, right? But I think it kind of goes back to our point. We see our friends traveling, want to travel to like go on 10 vacations a year, but not have any savings plan for the long term, right? It's as simple
you're
as
like talking to me.
We got a travel bug over here.
No, it's nothing wrong with travel. It's all about balance.
Yeah. You got to figure out the balance part of it.
No, it's as simple as like saving $500 a month, right? Right. You don't have to save everything. Like it's all about balance, right? Just make sure you have like a plan, essentially.
Yeah, no, I think social media, like I'm not trying to bash social media by any means, but I think, sometimes it's a drug.
Yeah, it is.
You're constantly consuming so many things and it's always going to be in your mind and you're always going to be chasing it. Yeah. And guess what? You will always be one step behind because there's so much to chase.
Exactly. Right. So I think that's why I think it's the main difference between our generation and our parents' generation is definitely, I'll say, discipline with money, essentially.
Yeah.
Just speaking in general, obviously there's some differences in there, right? So
for sure. So let's take a more personal step now. I know you've talked about this on your social media in terms of like your disability and how it's affected your journey so far. So we'd love to kind of have you tell our audience as well how it's affected your journey and what kind of challenges you've faced being a realtor, even before that, throughout your life.
Definitely. So I was born deaf, right? Profound in like pretty much profound deaf with no hearing in both ears.
Yep.
So my parents found out at the age of when I was 2 or 3 because I wasn't talking. Usually babies start saying mom or dad by that age. So they took me to the doctors, and that's when I was diagnosed with a profound hearing loss. So at the age of 4, I got surgery, a cochlear implant surgery, which basically takes all the eardrum, they replace it with a cochlear that's connected to your brain nerves. So it takes the sound in from, which is under this headphone, obviously. So it takes the sound in from my the cochlear, sends it to the cochlear implant, the internal one, and sends the sound waves to my brain. So that's how it works from like a higher level overview.
Wow.
Let's try to simplify as much as possible. So obviously I had to do a lot of speech therapy because I started hearing at a later age. It's kind of getting used to sounds. Like small things, like when I was going to the washroom, if I flush a toilet, I'll get scared. Like what was that? Because I was used to hearing nothing, right? So
do you remember all that kind of when you first started hearing and how that felt?
I do remember like the speech therapy sessions I went through. Like this kind of like learning different sounds, or they'll play random things like a dog barking, etc. So I remember that was definitely a lot to go through. But I've always had the support throughout school to kind of like I had a teacher, like a deaf and hard of hearing teacher, who would kind of come once a week. We was having a 1 hour session, like going make sure everything's okay with like from a speech perspective, or like understanding what's going on in the classroom. Sometimes I have trouble hearing the teachers and etc. So I've always had the support, and of course my parents supported me throughout the whole process. So I'm more than thankful for them too. But I didn't let that kind of like my parents always told me you gonna be twice as good, right? Don't let that kind of slow you back from what you can achieve essentially.
Of course, and you looks like you haven't let that kind of keep you from achieving things. So has that, I guess, then presented challenges like as a realtor or working in sales? Have you seen that present challenges to you in a way that where people are maybe not taking you a certain way that you would like them to?
Interesting enough, I wouldn't say so. It's actually funny, like growing up in like the cochlear implant is basically bigger than the iPhone. I wear it around my belt. I have a wire going all the way up there. Now it's just a small piece behind my ear.
Yeah.
But anyway, so growing up, people be like, "Yo, what is that on the ear?" Like, it'll be so weird to buy it. But nowadays, people think it's like a Bluetooth or AirPod.
So shout out to evolution of technology.
Exactly. Right, so it's more normalized. But honestly, like the technology has improved so much, right? The sound quality, it kind of muffles the background sound. Let's say if we're outside, if it's raining, with all the cochlear devices, it'll be harder for me to hear it because I'll hear like the rain in the background. But now it has the technology to muffle the background sound, if that makes sense. So I think that's helped a lot in terms of the communication perspective. And obviously, it's like years of rehab, speech therapy. It's kind of getting used to like the different sounds and kind of programming my brain to understand the sounds that are coming from it too. Right. So I wouldn't say there's been any challenges. It's kind of learned to cope with it, essentially. And actually, my parents had me do. Growing up, I did speaking competitions too. So I did like a 5-minute speech as well. So they kind of have to do like public speeches for over 100 people. So it's kind of putting me in those uncomfortable situations, but that also helps me to grow essentially.
Yeah, and as I said, you've definitely done amazing with or without disability. Like you're doing so much better than any of us, especially when it comes to real estate. We still got to figure that one out.
Yeah, no, that's genuinely an incredible story. Just because, as you said, your parents mentioned that you go twice as much. Yeah. They prompted you to be in those positions to not only do that, but cope with it as well.
So staying on that personal note, you've mentioned how your mom instilled kind of those financial values in you growing up. Yeah. And they've also supported you through your disability. So what role would you say your parents have played to your journey so far? Admittedly a big one, but I just wanted to give you a spot to...
Definitely. So growing up, both my parents are self-employed.
Yeah.
So my dad's like a chartered professional accountant with his own accounting practice.
Oh, nice.
And my mom did, at first she had like home is that senior care. So pretty much hiring PSWs to go into the seniors' homes and take care of them. So she sold that business and then she went into marketing. So I kind of grew up with both parents, like mom and dad, being self-employed. Yeah. So I kind of learned what it's like to be an entrepreneurship. Because when you're an entrepreneur, it's different. You take care of everything from point A to point Z. The marketing, the accounting, the resources, the public relations, right? So it's like you're like an all-in-one shop, essentially. And I think that's kind of why the corporate world wasn't for me, because I just wasn't used to just literally going like 9 to 5, doing the same thing every exact day, right? So I kind of learned a lot of those values from them, and I think a lot of that has really helped me to this day, essentially.
Yeah. So it's actually interesting. I've noticed a lot of folks who grow up around parents who are business owners and entrepreneurs. Yeah, that's the path they want to go to. And my parents weren't entrepreneurs or business owners, but I've always wanted to become an entrepreneur. But I also feel like because I haven't seen my parents in kind of going through those challenges growing up, that now when it's my turn to go through those challenges, it's a lot harder for me to figure it out. Well, I can assume you growing up in that environment, seeing your parents go through it, and also having them as people to go to advice for, that definitely helps a lot, probably.
100%. Yeah. And I think for entrepreneurship, it's always important to have mentors, or obviously surround yourself with like a supportive supportive group as well. But I think having mentors is very important. Just to kind of prevent you from making those mistakes that could be easily avoidable as well too.
Yeah. What's a big mistake that you've made?
In entrepreneurship or
Anything, real estate, entrepreneurship, in your journey so far.
I like how you have to think about it.
But you can say none. That's a valid answer.
there has to be something.
There has to be something. Man, that was a tough
Or
question.
fine. What's a regret that you have that maybe you would have done differently, if you have any? Maybe you don't.
Yeah. I'll say, okay, my mistake is not pursuing my passion soon enough. So the reason why I did the comfortable choice of going to like a full-time job right after school as opposed to get my real estate license because I had the mortgage to pay. So I was like, like it's too risky for me to do a commission role. So I kind of just went with that comfortable choice, right? So I'll say that's the mistake of me not pursuing my passion because I wasn't willing to take on that risk, right? I think without any risk, there's no growth. So I think that's the mistake I did. So I ended up getting my real estate license when I was 25, but I regret not getting it much sooner at the age of like 21, 22.
So in saying that, do you think, how has your personal philosophy towards wealth and success evolved as you've grown in the real estate world and with your social media following as well?
Yeah. So like my personal philosophy to wealth to success, how has it changed?
Exactly.
Or it doesn't have to change. Like, what is your current personal philosophy of regarding wealth and
definitely,
growth? Yeah.
definitely. I think obviously, like I believe there's like obviously I've hustled like grinded hard for the past couple of years, and I think it's also important to enjoy the moment as well. I'm sure you've seen some videos online saying, "Oh, you shouldn't buy an expensive car. Instead, you could save that money towards stocks, right?" But it's not harmful to kind of go traveling or buy a nice car as long as you have like a plan in place, as long as you save X% of your income towards stocks or real estate investing and etc. But I think the biggest thing is just be content with what you have. I think our generation has the habit of wanting more and more, right?
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense. It's just being content with what you have, right? So I think that's like the biggest philosophy over the past couple of years, essentially.
Wow.
That's a great point. So we've talked about social media a few times. And we've talked about kind of in a negative sense, but it could also be positive. Mm-hmm. And I've noticed going through your social media that you've really tried to leverage social media in order to educate people.
100%.
So what's behind that? Because I know you're a real estate guru pretty much, personal finance, you've done pretty well. And now the whole real estate education or even personal finance education aspect of it, what's behind that?
Yeah. What's my goal behind it, essentially?
Yeah. What's behind or what motivated that and what's your goal behind it? Yeah.
Definitely. These are passions that these are topics that I'm like passionate about, essentially. And I think generally speaking, a lot of people always slide my DMs like about personal finance questions or real estate related questions. So that's kind of why I enjoy educating people, kind of helping others make the right decisions or try to help them purchase their first property, essentially, right? So that's kind of like my passion, trying to help other millennials do something similar too, as well.
Yeah, and I guess it also helps as a kind of like a marketing tool, as well, right?
That too. And I find there's a lot of like negativity in the media saying, "Oh, like millennials can't afford homes in GTA," right? There's definitely ways around it, right? It's a matter of being creative or coming up with solutions. So I feel like there's more so of millennials can't do this, but there's not enough of what can millennials do to get to this point, essentially. So that's another reason why I kind of put the educational content out there. It's kind of inspire others to do the same.
So you think in today's day and age in the GTA, there's a more amplified negative notion of millennials not being able to afford something as opposed to how they can afford it?
Yeah, 100%. I would say so, right? Yeah. Or just something as simple as, like, there's also a misconception of really buying first home has to be a double car garage detached home. It's actually such a common misconception. You don't need all that space, especially if you don't have kids. Yeah. You start with like a townhome, right? honestly, 1,700 square feet townhome, they could be just as spacious or a semi-detached home, right? Start off with what you can afford, build equity, and climb up the property ladder, right? So,
You had this acronym. I don't recall in which article or which form of media, but there was this acronym that you had in relation to house hacking strategy. Do you recall what that is?
oh, BRRRR.
Yeah,
Yeah.
BRRRR.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. It's not ice, right? No, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
Well, it's a little bit chilly out there today.
Tell me about BRRRR. What is this?
Yeah, so you buy.
And how can I do it?
Yeah, definitely. So you buy a home that's either under market value or has room for forced appreciation. So it could be like a fixed upper bungalow, like a single family home with a side door entrance for a basement. So you buy the home, do the renovations, like an additional unit, so like a basement apartment unit. So when you add a basement apartment unit, you pretty much increasing the value of the home. That's forced appreciation. So buy, renovate, and then you rent it out. So that's the next one. Or rent to the main floor and basement separately, and then you refinance. And then you take the equity out and you repeat. So that's BRRRR. So buy, renovate, rent, refinance, repeat.
Sold. Add an S in front of that. That was good. Wow.
Is it really as easy as that sounds?
Yeah.
So when the interest rates are like rock bottom,
Yeah.
it's definitely very easy to do BRRRRs.
Yeah.
Now BRRRRs aren't. You can still do a BRRRR for sure, but you're not going to get most of the equity out, unfortunately. Maybe instead of getting 80, 90% of the equity, or sometimes 100% of the equity out, probably get maybe 60, 70% out, which is still a good chunk. So that's one thing to be mindful of. But the way I look at it is when the interest rates do come down, your cash flow will improve, or that gives you the opportunity to take that equity out and leverage it into the next project. But obviously, don't over leverage. Right? I try not to go. I've seen some investors make the mistake of over leveraging to over 80%, right? Especially in times like this, that's kind of when your portfolio could take a massive hit. Like, be too negative cash flow, or you have to offload your property at a loss. So not over leveraging is key when it comes to the BRRRR strategy. It's making sure you kind of stabilize everything from that perspective.
Yeah, no, I think that was huge during the pandemic, during the initial boom. Like everybody and their uncles were just refinancing everything. And I was like, wow, what, really?
I mean, my parents too.
Really?
Not just uncles.
Well, that's my uncle.
Don't kill it. Yeah.
Oh,
Yo, man, even Brampton, like, I'm not sure if you follow the real estate market, but Brampton, like, I think out of all cities in GTA, Brampton went up the most.
A refinancing?
No, like in terms of like, values.
Really?
Values.
When to when? When are we talking?
Just before they increase the interest rates. So we're
Really?
talking about February 2022.
Wow.
Because I've seen some semi-detached homes in Brampton, like Brampton Northwest, for example.
Yeah.
So Mayfield and Mississauga Road,
Yeah.
go for like 1.6 million.
Semi?
February 2022, which was crazy. But now those are worth like 1.1 max.
That is crazy.
I wonder if how the people feel who bought these properties during the pandemic
Yeah.
and right before the interest rate spike.
Yeah.
And I feel kind of bad for them.
Yeah. I can't imagine what it feels like.
Yeah.
Right. Like knockwood, thankfully, even during like the hot market, we've knockwood like pretty much all of our deals. So like how it works when you buy a home, the bank has to appraise it. Let's say you buy a home for $1 million. The bank appraises it for $900,000. You have to come up with that difference itself because they'll say you overpay for the home. But even during that market, all of our appraisals came in. Like knockwood, we haven't had a situation where a buyer overpaid for the home, right? Because that's the last thing we want to happen.
Literally, we could talk about real estate all day long. In GTA, in the GTA, it's literally a movie. But we're talking about different time periods right now, right? So if you could buy a property in any historical period or even a future setting, where and when would that be? And why?
Sorry?
Where and when would that be?
So,
and
so
why?
this we're getting into a more of a hypothetical situation.
Yeah.
Definitely.
You're going back in time, or would you want to go in the future? And let's just assume it's somewhere in the GTA. Where would Ontario?
I would say hypothetically early, so in the 1990s, early 1990s, there's a similar trend to what we're seeing right now. Huge spike in interest rates, except at that time it was double-digit interest rates, right? So it could be worse.
That's actually the crazy thing that I guess people don't realize. The interest rates we have right now are normal.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's not.
Yeah.
What we had before was abnormal.
Exactly.
Nowhere can you get interest rates that low.
Exactly. Right. I think it'll come down like 3 or 4%, but that's gonna be the new normal, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, with that being said, so 1990s is pretty much stagnant. But I'll go back to the early 2000s and buying downtown Toronto.
Really?
Yeah, especially
Why is that?
parking lot. I mean, those are condos now,
Oh,
right? Because remember downtown early 2000s is most
So many parking lots. Yeah.
Right?
That's actually that.
and guess
makes
where
so
they
much
are
sense.
now? Underneath the building, charging us more money.
Exactly, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
those people who own those parking lots, they're laughing, right?
Yeah.
So, right,
I heard owning a parking lot is actually a pretty good business.
it is,
Yeah.
right. I mean, I probably wouldn't have done the parking lot. I probably would have done like a detached home in downtown, converted to like a multiplex.
Yeah.
Just a little bit more stable. I got to grab a property at King and Dufferin, so it's a semi-detached home. I converted to like a triplex. So like that's something I would have done, but earlier back then, like early 2000s.
Yeah, it's crazy with some of these properties in downtown and midtown. They get so creative in the
Yeah.
ways that they structure their homes,
Yeah.
like redesign them and renovate them,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they just
Yeah.
kind of look out of the blue now.
Exactly, right. So for my property at King and Dufferin, so it's a semi-detached home, built in 1900, so it's like a century home. But the good thing about these century homes, they're massive, right? This one's 3 stories plus a basement. So what I did was the basement unit is one apartment, the main floor unit is the second apartment, and the upper 2 levels is the third apartment, essentially, right? So I was able to convert it to a triplex like that, but that's pretty much a common way these ones are structured. But again, because they're century homes, they tend to have a lot more space compared to some of like the homes built in the 60s, 70s.
And all the tenants are getting along nicely.
Yeah, they are.
That's priceless.
What I do is I put separate laundry in each unit. I think that's my main
God
goal.
bless your soul.
Because I personally wouldn't want to share a
Yeah, no one wants anyone else's dirty laundry, right?
Exactly, literally, right? So there's that. Yeah. But yeah, to answer the question, it would have been downtown, but somewhere along the major road. Is that a lot of the developers have brought those up and built condos, and they can't get money, right?
Yeah.
I actually saw this home in Scarborough. A developer bought. It's a detached home along Kingston Road because they're building a lot of condos there.
Mm-hmm.
The developer paid the homeowner $3 million for the detached house.
Just
The market
get-
value, yeah,
Nice.
the market value is around $2 million at most. With the, like extra $1 million.
Yeah.
They just-
He clearly has a plan in sight.
Yeah, exactly, right. But I think they got lucky. They were like long-term owners. They didn't think a condo developer was going to buy them out. But
Yeah.
but like obviously stuff like that's more common in downtown.
Right. You gotta get those condos built with all the people coming in.
Exactly, right. Yeah.
So, sticking to hypotheticals now, looking into the future, is there I guess, what would be kind of like your dream home, and what area would that be in? It doesn't have to be in GTA. If you could have if you could live in your dream area with your dream home, where would that be, and what kind of house would that be?
Also, my dream home would be something that's either Lakeview
Ooh.
or a ravine lot, or additional bonus if it kind of overlooks like a river or something like that. Right?
I'm telling you, Jelani does not want to go away from the Scarborough Bluffs. I know which lots you're talking about, boy.
I was trying to think of another area, but yeah, let's say Scarborough Bluffs.
Oh, man.
Honestly, because it's close to the city, but it's like a college feel in some areas, right? But there's some pockets of Etobicoke that are really nice too, as well, right?
Yeah.
So,
I like the Mimico area.
yeah, Mimico is really nice
It
too.
is nice, yeah.
Mimico's proper. Right?
Yeah. I mean,
Those
not
things-
houses, but I've seen those condos that are right by the lake.
Yeah. No, actually, if you go a little bit west, there's
Yeah.
some really nice houses.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I've seen
right,
those.
right.
I used to actually rent one of those out.
Sorry?
I used to rent a room in one of those
Oh,
houses
sweet.
before.
Yeah, sweet.
Yeah.
Awesome.
For like a few months during the pandemic.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I see.
That was nice because you can just take a walk by the lake, go
Yeah,
running.
yeah, yeah.
Like I think it was called Humber West or
Yeah.
Humber
Yeah.
Humber Bay Park.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a nice
yeah.
area.
Yeah. Nice.
On that topic, though, looking forward, what are your goals for the future, both in your career and then in your efforts to promote financial literacy, especially amongst the
Yeah.
millennials and Gen Z?
Definitely. My goal for me is just kind of continue, kind of helping other millennials achieve this, like home ownership, kind of building wealth. I think this is the biggest thing. But from the career perspective, so like I'm the team lead for Vertex Real Estate. So my goal is to kind of continue growing that as well. We kind of, most of our client base is kind of millennials. Again, kind of tying back into my philosophy, helping millennials build wealth. But from a personal perspective, like from my real estate portfolio, I'd say my goal for the future is kind of like getting more into like redevelopment. So I do have a project in Scarborough. Hopefully, we'll probably start building the next year or so. All the permits approved and everything. I'm just waiting for the interest rates to come down. So right now, the interest rate for construction mortgages is like through the roof. So that's my plan, and also have get into like a multiplex within the Toronto region, because I think long term wise, that's going to generate like very stable cash flow, especially when the mortgage is paid off, right? So the way I look at it is, if you look at the CPP, Canadian Pension Plan, it pays pennies, right? So if you have at least 2 or 3 investment properties, and when it's paid off in 30 years, that loan's going to be more than enough for your retirement, right? So that's the way I look at it, essentially, right? So
Basically, this man's trying to be a real estate mogul. That's where we're headed with that. So another thing I wanted to ask. So on this podcast, we talk about technology a lot.
yeah.
And in terms of the advances of technology, that's one of the core topics we talk about. So, in being in real estate, have you seen any changes due to technology or new technology that are coming out, or what do you foresee in the future for like real estate as a whole? How will technology affect it in any way, or do you see real estate being affected?
I would say, well, technology, the beauty about technology is giving buyers a lot more information at their fingertips. I'm sure you guys know the app called Sigma, right?
Yes.
Right. For everyone, the mom has that app. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Even I do. You see a house, your neighbor's home sold. Oh, 123 ABC Street. Oh, they sold for this much, right? So it's definitely giving a lot more information at the buyer's fingertips, and that's where technology came quite convenient or beneficial for the industry. And also like DocuSign. This is when I first started real estate before COVID. We had to bring the offers to like the paperwork to like the client's house for them to sign. It's very like old school, but COVID kind of forced it to go digital. So I think that was like the beauty about it too. So I think technology has really benefited the industry. It being more efficient, kind of be more transparent, giving more information at the buyer's fingertips, essentially.
That makes sense. So following up on that, what's that piece of technology that doesn't exist yet, but you wish existed to make, I guess, your life as a realtor or easier?
I'll say flying cars, so I can skip the traffic.
That would definitely help.
That's how you know you live in Toronto.
Legit though. Right, yeah.
I guess, yeah, because as a realtor, you're traveling quite a lot.
Yeah, pretty much, right, yeah. Like yesterday, I was went from Scarborough to Brampton to Orangeville to Scarborough to Mississauga to Scarborough.
Oh, boy.
Please tell me it was the CRV.
It's a CRV, but coming back to Mississauga is the entire road.
I like how he keeps it in the mix.
Just buy some real estate on the 401.
Sorry?
Just buy some real estate on the 401.
Yeah, pretty much, right? Right. So it's
That's what I used to live in Ottawa before, and I would travel back and forth from Ottawa every other weekend. Yeah. So a lot of times these guys would call me and I'd be like, yeah, I'm just on my home in the 401, you know, where I live now.
Okay. Yeah, how did you like Ottawa?
Ottawa was boring.
Yeah.
It was really boring. Real estate wise, it's a good market to be in. It's a growing market. Right? Yeah. It's affordable, it's growing.
Yeah. $1 million gets like a beautiful double car grass detached home.
Yeah.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah. My parents have a home there.
Nice.
So and they pretty reasonable when you consider how it is and how it will be in Toronto. But that's also one of the reasons I think. So when my parents moved from Toronto to Ottawa like 3 years ago.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
So they're still there.
They're in Ottawa now. Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah. But they used to live in Toronto before. But so one of the main reasons my mom was like, okay, no, I want to have a property in Toronto is because we're gonna go to Ottawa, we're gonna buy property there. And then if we ever want to move back to Toronto, we're going to get priced out because Ottawa is not appreciating in value as much as Toronto, or at least that's what she thought. So that's why they did the whole BRRRR refinancing, refinance, and kept their house in Toronto while also buying a new one in Ottawa. Yeah. So I hope that turns out to be a good decision. I think it was.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But that's the reason she wanted to keep a house in Toronto, because it's okay. Like, I don't want to get priced out, so I want to have a property here, so that also appreciates in value at the same time.
Okay. That's awesome. Yeah.
I think they're on their road to success. Why? Because they applied the BRRRR.
Yeah.
That's
pretty much
what it is.
Is that right? That our parents' generation, they're very conservative. They're very more risk averse, right? I think it's because they kind of went through the phase of double-digit interest rates in the 1990s. So that's probably why they're less reluctant to take on debt, right? So
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah, I mean, I think you talked about balance, right? So I think for my parents, it was like, okay, no travels, just save and buy a house. I mean,
Yeah.
it's also like kind of an immigrant story because you're
Yeah.
coming here, you don't have too much money, so you want to save.
That's awesome.
And then in my case, I'm like, okay, how many trips can we take this year? Don't worry about buying a house later.
yeah, that's awesome.
Oh,
yeah.
man. But see, that's the crazy thing. If you look at most immigrant parents that have come to Canada, they were able to get into real estate with quote unquote minimum wage or something along those
Or
lines to
factory
start
jobs.
off with.
Or factory jobs.
Yeah.
Like legit.
See, you were able to work to get into real estate. Now
Yeah.
you have to get creative.
Exactly. Right.
So-
You have to get very creative. Right.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Right? Or create an OnlyFans. I'm just kidding.
Oh, I like that.
That could help. That could definitely help.
Yeah. You have to be very creative, right? So, I believe there's a will, there's a way, essentially, right?
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing started with what you can afford. I think those days of getting like a double car garage detached home right off the bat is pretty much long over, right?
Yeah.
It's just, if you look at GTA, it's mostly built up. There's not much land left, right? If you actually look at Brampton Northwest,
Mhm.
that's the only pocket left that they're developing homes on. Once that's finished, there's no more room left to build houses.
In that
Brampton.
pocket.
Well, I'm saying like this price could be fixed, so price is only gonna keep going up,
Wow.
right? So,
Yeah.
and also there's so much newcomers coming there, right? So it's a supply and demand. It's not meeting each other, so that's why there's an upwards pressure on prices too.
Yes. One last burning question on my side before I hand off the floor to you. Any comments on the whole suburb versus city discussion?
You want perspective.
What's better for us, for the average consumer? Let's say a millennial.
It's funny. I did a article on this like way back.
I totally didn't read that though.
So I was, it was at that time it was other townhome in Scarborough, freehold townhome for $526,000, 3 bedrooms, 3 washers, backyard, garage, everything. Or a detached home in Brampton for $550,000, $600,000. Similar specs, same size. But I decided to go with Scarborough because it's much closer to downtown. The gold ticket fare is like $4 one way, whereas coming from Brampton it's like what, $8.
Yeah.
Okay, so that stuff like that adds up. Or like more gas, higher insurance, higher property taxes. Right, Toronto has the lowest property tax rate, so that's personally why I chose Toronto. But I think aside from the numbers, it drills down to the lifestyle preferences. There's some people that prefer to live in the boonies. There's some people that prefer to live right in the core of the city in like a condo. So I think it drills down to lifestyle. There's no like right or wrong answer, to be honest.
And that's
Personally speaking, I'm like a city person. Right?
Ah.
Same
No,
here.
I was just gonna say that's how you know you have a good realtor on your side. The one that says, you know, honestly, it's up on your lifestyle preferences. Be like, good. That's what I wanted to hear.
No, because everyone's different, right? So I've actually have I have seen people move from like city people move from like the core of Toronto to the suburbs, and they kind of move right back. I've seen that happen quite often because they say it's like too quiet for them. They prefer to be in that core, right? So everyone's has that different personality.
Yeah, for sure.
That makes sense. So I guess you had your last part.
Yes, I did.
So for my last segment for you, where I want to hear 2 pieces of advice from you.
Yeah.
So the first one is regarding if someone's buying a home, what advice would you give them in terms of like, okay, what are the main things you should look at?
Yeah, okay. I say step number 1 before you start anything, is get mortgage pre-approval. Sit down, review your finances, the mortgage broker, how much down payment you have saved up, what are the monthly payments you're comfortable with. Let's say you get a mortgage for X amount, with X amount down, how much your mortgage payments are going to be. And obviously step number 2, I think have like a plan in place. Are you looking to purchase a home to live in, or are you looking to stay at your current place, like your current rental, and buy investment property and let that take care of itself? Use the cash flow and supplement your current rental property. I've had some clients that have done that strategy as well. So I think having a plan in place is extremely important when it comes to buying a property. Because once you have a plan in place, it's easier for you to break it down to small steps to help you to get to that end goal, right? It's if you just say, I'm going to buy a house in 5 years, but without actually planning anything, it looks like a unrealistic goal. But if you break it down to small steps, You have to achieve certain milestones by certain dates. It just makes things a lot easier. So that's my biggest advice.
That's awesome. That's really good advice. I could definitely use that advice. So thank you. Now for the second piece of advice, for people who are getting into real estate or want to get into real estate, what are some pieces of advice you would give them to, I guess, help them in their career?
Definitely. I would say start off with leases. There's nothing wrong with starting off with leases. Because when you start with leases, you're kind of learning to do paperwork. You talk with listing agents. You talk with tenants. You talk with landlords, right? You're kind of developing those people's skills around the real estate perspective. And also, don't compare yourself with others. I find that a lot of new realtors make this mistake. But, oh man, this guy just started. He already closed 5 deals, right? Right. Sometimes people post on social media. I've seen that happen, right? So just always go at your own pace, essentially. And the last thing is just kind of focus on building a database slowly. It's all about having conversations. It's all about building trust. It's all about kind of sending the data that your clients need or like the listings that they might be interested. It's not that you're not really selling them. Yes, you're kind of educating them on the options available that will kind of fit them with their needs and etc. Right? So, it's all about building trust, doing consistent follow-ups. It's kind of knowing your stuff inside out, and just kind of build a database slowly, as opposed to like rushing into it. Because I'd rather have a database of 500 loyal clients than a database of 5,000 people that don't have a close working relationship, right? So quality is obviously greater than quantity.
For sure. And what I take away from that is relationships are obviously very important.
Oh, for sure. And that applies with many professions, to be honest, right? Especially with customer-facing roles.
Absolutely. Thank you for those advice. I hope our listeners, and including ourselves, took a lot away from that. Do you have anything else?
No, I just want to say thank you, Jelani, because genuinely, I think, that was very engaging. I learned quite a bit, a lot of things to bring the reality of things of real estate in the GTA. So thank you. And
thank you guys for having me on this podcast. It's definitely a pleasure, and I enjoyed it too as well.
No, thank you.
Of course. So with that, again, thank you, Jelani, for coming on the pod. Is there anything you would like to plug?
No, I think that's pretty much it.
All right. I mean, we'll obviously link your social media with ours. So if you want to check him out, please, we'll have his profile linked on our social media. And anything else we can find of yours, we'll pop it in our description. So if you want to learn anything else from him, feel free to, he has his Instagram. Awesome. You can, I'm sure you wouldn't mind people reaching out to you with any questions.
Yep, I wouldn't mind as well. So you can shoot me a DM. My DMs are, it's going to be in the bio, as you said, right?
Yep.
So I'm open to questions, as always.
It's perfect.
Sure.
All right, absolutely. And with that, we are signing out. Again, it's me, Salvi, my co-host, Naveed. And once again, thank you, Jelani, for joining us.
Thank you,
and hope everyone has a good day. We out.